Hey guys, Matt here from Straightforward Auto. Today we have a 2009 Honda Accord here for some front and rear brake pads and rotors. Let's get into it. You will be needing a number of tools for this job: a 1/2-inch impactor breaker bar, a 19mm socket, a deep 17 or a shallow 17 and an extension, a 14mm, a 12mm, 3/8 ratchet, a C-clamp or a brake compression tool, but you'll also be needing a caliper service toolkit for the rear calipers. You can get that at any auto parts store or Harbor Freight. First, you're going to want to raise and support your vehicle and then take a 19mm socket and go ahead and remove the wheel. Then we get access to the brakes. What I do is I go ahead and turn the wheel, and that just gives me extra room to get back in here. Next, you're going to take a 14mm and work on your caliper bolts. Then you can take off your caliper, put it off to the side, and then we'll continue from there. With the caliper out of the way, we can go ahead and work on the 2 caliper bolts in the back. They're going to be your 17mm. Once your caliper bracket has been removed, you can go ahead and remove your old rotor. Sometimes these rotors are kind of stuck on there, so you can hammer it off if you need. Mine just popped right off. And then sometimes there will be screws kind of holding it into place. Most of the times they're just Phillips. So if you have those in there, go ahead and remove those. Then you can take your old rotor off. And then we're good to put the new brake pads on and the new rotor on. Over at the bench, we have our new pads ready to go. Install the new hardware. It's just as simple as popping it off, putting the new ones on, and then went ahead and put the pads on. Now, in your kit, there should be 2 pads that come with this little metal extension and 2 that don't. This is actually a wear indicator, and this will start squealing once it gets to the point where you need to replace them. This goes on the back side, and then a way to kind of know which side is the back side is the one with the slide pins. Now we can get our rotor ready. Okay, so to prep the rotor, all I did was just hose it down in some brake clean, because these do come packaged in oil so that way they don't rust, but you don't want that oil on there when you are putting your brakes back together. So just go ahead and rinse it down with some brake clean. And then I went ahead and attached our caliper bracket with the pads installed. Now we have to compress the pistons on the caliper. You can use that by using a C-clamp, but I have a piston compression tool. It kind of works the same way, where it just grabs onto the caliper and then it just pushes in the pistons, but you can do the same thing with a large C-clamp. Once you have your piston compressed, you can go ahead and put your caliper back on. You want to make sure that the piston is compressed all the way, because since these pads are so much bigger, they're going to need all that room. Then you can go ahead and reattach your slide pin bolts. Then you can go ahead and straighten your wheel back out, put your wheel back on, and then we're going to hop onto the rear. Once you're in the rears, make sure you take your wheel off with the 19mm, and then the rear caliper bolts, or the slide pin bolts, these are actually 12s, so go ahead and take those off. Once you have your caliper up and out of the way, next we can go ahead and remove the 17mm bolts on the back half. These ones are going to be on there pretty tight just because they do tighten over time, but this top one, you will be needing a slight extension just to clear that ball joint. Once you get your caliper off, you can go ahead and put your new pads on. Just make sure you are putting your new hardware on. Taking a wire brush or something and cleaning up underneath the old hardware helps the new hardware go on and stay on and cause any future problems. And just go ahead and make sure that you are greasing up your pins as you go. Now that we have our caliper bracket ready to go with the fresh pads, we're going to do the same thing for the rear. We're going to get the rotor, clean it off with some brake clean, put the rotor on, put this back on, and then compress the piston. Now that we have our cleaned rotor installed, our brake caliper bracket back on with our fresh pads, now we can go ahead and compress this piston. Now you do need a special tool, as this needs to spin as you push it back. So let's go get the tool set up. All right, so here I have the tool set up. So what it does is it has teeth that goes into the channels of the piston. And then this backing plate right here sits up against the back of the caliper. and then you twist the handle, and what it does is that it twists this while pushing it in. So you'll go ahead and do that till it fully compresses. You can rent this tool at any AutoZone store, or Harbor Freight even sells it, and that's the part number from Harbor Freight. Once you get your piston completely pressed back in, you can go ahead and reattach your caliper and reattach your slide pin bolts. Now, don't be scared if you're having to put a lot of force into it. The pistons get old and they age, and sometimes they get a little bit difficult to spin in. If it's not budging whatsoever at all, then you might have a seized piston and you might have to just go get a new caliper. But just be warned that it can be a little difficult sometimes to twist those in. But once you get everything reassembled, you can go ahead and put your wheel back on, and there you are. That is how you do the front and rear on a 2009 Honda Accord. You will just repeat the same process on the other side. Once you're done with both sides, you can go ahead and jump in the vehicle. And what I like to do is just slowly press down on the brake a couple times until it gets nice and firm. You want to do this because you compress the pistons all the way, but they still need to travel back out to be tight with the new brake pads. Once they're tight, you can go ahead and start the vehicle. Go ahead, pump it just a couple more times, and then you can go ahead and take it for a test drive just to make sure that nothing's grinding, nothing's making any noise. Also double check your brake fluid reservoir, make sure you're still within the min-max marks. Just take it easy, don't do anything crazy, because the pads are mating with a fresh surface and the rotors are also setting in for the first time as well. This job took me about an hour and a half all the way around. If you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead, leave them down below. Like and subscribe. I come out with repair videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday.